If you're helping a child multiply fractions, the written method can look almost too easy. Top times top, bottom times bottom. But it's also important they understand why. I'm Marie from This Child Can, and I'll show you a simple way to explain multiplying fractions as finding part of a part. More pizza fractions. So multiplying fractions is one of those topics where the method is short, but the meaning really matters. A child might be taught top times top, bottom times bottom, and that is a useful method. But if that's all they learn, they may be able to get the answer without really knowing what they have done. Let's break it down with an example. Here we have 2/3 times a half. Now we can read this as 2/3 of 1/2. And that little word of is really important because in maths, of usually means multiply. So instead of starting with the rule, I would say to the child, when we multiply these fractions, we are actually finding 2/3 of 1/2. So we're finding a part of a part, and let's show that. I'm going to use a rectangle because it's much easier to split neatly than a pizza. Although pizza is obviously more exciting. Now this rectangle is the whole. First, we need to split it into halves. Now this is the bit where I would slow down for the child. We are not finding 2/3 of the whole rectangle. Instead, we are finding 2/3 of this half. That is where children often lose the meaning. Their eyes go to the whole shape, but the question is asking for a fraction of the shaded part. And a useful way to say it is start with the part after of. So we start with the half. Now we need 2/3 of that half. The denominator is the bottom number in a fraction, which tells us how many equal parts we are splitting something into. So because we're finding 2/3, we split the half into 3 equal parts, like this. Now the numerator is the top number. It tells us how many of those equal parts we want. So because the numerator is 2, we take 2 of those 3 parts. So now we've shown 2/3 of 1/2. But our final answer needs to tell us now how much of the whole rectangle we have. So now look back at the whole shape. The whole has been split into 6 equal parts. And we have 2 of them here. So the answer is 2/6. So 2/3 times 1/2 equals 2/6. And now we know that the answer is in 6 because the whole rectangle ended up split into 6 equal parts. Multiplying fractions means finding a part of a part. That's why the bottom numbers multiply. And now let's practice the written method. So for 2/3 times a half, you might say 2/3 of 1/2. Top times top gives 2. And then bottom times bottom equals 6. So the answer is 2/6. Nice. It's the same pattern each time. And if they're overwhelmed, just go back to the picture method. And a really useful check is to ask, what does this calculation actually mean? And if your child can say it means 2/3 of a half, or it means part of a part, then they are much closer to real understanding. Now, there is one common misconception to watch out for. Your child might say multiplication makes things bigger. And you can see how that idea confuses things. Most of their early multiplication has probably been with whole numbers, so they may expect multiplication to make the answer larger. But when we multiply by a fraction less than 1, we are finding a part of something, so the answer can get smaller. And a useful thing to say to the child is, multiplying by a fraction means taking a part of something. So if we are finding 2/3 of a half, the answer should be smaller than a half. And 2/6 is smaller than 1/2. So the answer makes sense. And that's a really useful habit to build. Not just have I followed the method, but does my answer feel reasonable? So the key message is this. Use the same 3 steps each time. Say what the fraction means, multiply the tops, and then multiply the bottoms. In this video, we've seen that multiplying fractions means finding a part of a part. And that's the idea that helps the method make much more sense, instead of it just feeling like a rule to remember. Thanks for watching. If this helped, please like the video and subscribe to This Child Can for more calm, practical explanations for parents, tutors and teachers. And I'd love to know in the comments, what part of multiplying fractions do you think children find hardest to understand?